Hey friends, welcome to today's video. My name's Stephanie, and today we're back with another installment of my favorite color series, this time for yellow. Now, I was really excited to work on this video because I love yellow nail polish, especially this time of year when it starts to get warmer out. Even though, admittedly, it's been kind of like chilly and gloomy the past week or so. Well, now it's humid if you couldn't tell by my frizzy hair, but I just had so much fun working with my favorite yellows and swatching them because they just really lifted my spirits. So without further ado, let me show you my favorites. The first yellow is definitely a new and recent addition to my favorites, but I still absolutely love this. This is Go Away by Cirque's recent MXM Tune collaboration collection. This one is described as a buttery yellow jelly, and it just is such a beautiful pastel yellow jelly that I just cannot get enough of. Normally, when it comes to pastel yellows, I love them in the springtime and I usually leave them in the spring, but this one just feels so refreshing in the summertime for me. Like, I've been wearing this for a couple of days on both hands, so that should say something. But it just reminds me of lemon gelato or ices or something like that. That's just so refreshing for summer. I just think this one is super cute and super flattering. I can't recommend it enough. Next up, we have Sunshine from Olive Polish. Now, you know that I love this shade. Well, if you're familiar with my videos, but if you are new, I have talked about this shade so often before. It is just the pastel yellow for me, mainly because of the color, but also because of the formula. Look at how amazing this looks in one coat. It just blows me away every single time that I wear it. But yeah, the color is just so adorable, perfect for springtime. This one is definitely one that I normally only wear in the spring because, I don't know, I just gravitate towards the warmer, brighter yellows that we'll see in a bit, but I think it's so, so beautiful. The next shade we have is Static Nails on the Bright Side, and this is a sunny pastel yellow with another full coverage formula. Yellows are pretty notorious for having awful formulas, honestly, where they're very streaky and thin, but these two, for being pastels, are just so impressive. So this one I would say is a little bit warmer, like there's almost a buttercream kind of feel to it that I just adore so much. I don't know what it is about these types of yellows that just get to me, but they do. And this also reminds me of the color of my bedroom when I was a kid, so it just makes me so happy and nostalgic. But yeah, absolutely love this one. Now getting into the brighter primary yellows, the first one we have is Cirque's Hedonist, which I've already shared a couple of times. It made it into my summer favorites, and this recently came out as a part of Cirque's Vice collection for this year. This is the most true primary neon yellow that I have seen, though admittedly I'm not the biggest neon collector, so there probably are other shades out there, but I still absolutely adore this one. It is just the perfect primary neon in my collection, and I just love it for this time of year. It's so bright. Next up, we have Color Department's Mango A Go-Go from their somewhat recent Jamba Juice collaboration. This is another primary kind of yellow shade, but this one isn't a neon, so it doesn't really have that eye-searing quality to it, but I still think it is such a bright and beautiful shade. I have been loving this one ever since I got it. It just is everything to me that I love and need for the season. I also really love mangoes. They're like my favorite fruit, so this polish being inspired by a mango smoothie is just extra yummy to me. The next yellow I have is another one that I shared somewhat recently, at least in a comparison portion of my video. This one is Arosa's Star, and this is described as a bright yellow, but with hints of orange. So we are starting to get some slightly warmer yellows in here. And this is another absolute favorite of mine. I've had it in my collection for a couple of years, and it was like my go-to primary yellow kind of shade. Even though it is a little bit warmer than a true primary yellow, it just hit all the right spots for me. I especially love using Arosa polishes for nail art because they're very pigmented, and I feel like this shade is the perfect color for sunflowers, which I love painting, so it makes me so happy. Up next, I have Nailtopia's Glow Up, which is another bright and sunny yellow shade with a touch of warmth. So this probably looks really similar to Arosa's Star, and again, I will have the side-by-side comparison at the end, but I did have a hard time capturing the nuances of these yellows. I would say that even though it does look like a very true primary yellow here, this one is a touch darker or warmer than Arosa's shade is, so there is a little bit of nuance there, but they admittedly are very similar. I'm just really into these yellows right now. I can't help it. The next shade I have is a bit of a throwback from like 2017. This is Glisten & Glow's Great Balancing Act. And this one is actually described as a mimosa orange cream, but even though it is a little bit orange leaning, I feel like this reads as a true macaroni and cheese kind of color, which like is sometimes kind of a gross way to describe polish, at least in my opinion, but I consider this like a borderline yellow shade. It's definitely the warmest yellow that I have. I do think it's picking up a lot brighter here on camera, like a true yellow kind of shade, but it is a lot more orange leaning and also a bit dustier than the last two yellows that I shared. So I don't know, there's something about this that I would consider a yellow, maybe because it just reminds me of a late summer kind of transitional yellow. So getting into the fall yellows, the first one that I have is Monarch from LA Colors. And this one is a somewhat new shade to my collection. I've only had it for about a year, and it was my first time trying LA Colors, and I was just generally very impressed. So this might not look like much on the first coat, but once it does build up in 2 or 3 coats and you just see that color build up more, I think it's just such a flattering shade, especially for like the early fall time, because it is very warm, but there is a little bit of that dusty, almost mustard leaning color. Speaking of mustard, the next shade we have is Mustard Bird from Dimension Nails. So I am not the biggest fan of mustard leaning colors, especially in the fall time, and I know that's probably an unpopular opinion because I feel like mustard yellows and olive greens are just so quintessential for the season, but I just remember hating them, and this was the first mustard yellow that I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I actually really love this one. I think it's because it is like a pastel mustard, which I just don't really see that often, and I don't know, there's something just so flattering about it. Unfortunately though, this one is an older bottle from my collection, so I don't think it's available anymore. The next color I have is Zoya's Honey, and this one is a warm golden honeycomb cream. So I absolutely adore this one because, like I just mentioned, I'm not really the biggest fan of the typical yellow shades during the fall time. This one feels like a slightly deeper, slightly more muted version of the bright primary yellows that I love in the summer. So it is just so perfect for me. I think I shared this in my transitional favorites from last year too, going from summer to fall. It is just so beautiful, such a rich shade. And the last yellow in my favorites is Tactful Turmeric from Doctor's Remedy. So this one is like a step or two darker than Zoya's Honey. So this is just the darkest that I get when it comes to my favorite yellows, especially in the fall time, because again, I'm just not really into the traditional mustard kind of yellows, and I just don't like it when they get too brown. But this one I think is just gorgeous because there is still a lot of warmth to it, and it feels suitable, I would say, for the late summer or fall season. It's just so flattering and cozy to me. Now, I know this definitely leans very orange, so I wanted to show this next to Nailtopia's Main Squeeze, which I would consider a very true orange color, just so you can have a little bit of a better reference for the color. And here is the collage of all of my favorite yellows. It's so funny seeing these because, again, I definitely struggled getting the darker yellows, especially to be color accurate. I feel like so many of these look like they're dupes of each other, but I swear when you really look at them side by side, they have these subtle differences, whether some of them are brighter or more yellow leaning, or others are a little bit more muted or dusty looking. So they're not dupes, even though they might look like it. But yeah, I would love to know which of these yellows stands out to you and if you have any favorites. So that wraps up my favorite yellows. So I would love to know what you all think about my picks, if you have any of them, or just what you think about yellow nail polish in general, because I feel like it's kind of one of those really unpopular colors. I think maybe yellow is one of the more popular of the unpopular. Like usually I think yellow and oranges tend to be like the worst selling colors according to like nail polish brands. Maybe green is in there too, but you know how I feel about like those yellow green kind of shades. So I don't know if it's like actual facts or it's just my opinions on them. But yeah, obviously when it comes to yellows, I just love the much brighter, sunnier, cheery kind of shades. And I was kind of surprised too to see my lineup, because normally when I think of like, oh, I love yellow nail polish, I always think of like the pastels first in my collection because that's normally what I would gravitate to. But seeing my lineup, I had so many more of those like brighter primary yellows. I'm not sure if it was just like a subconscious thing because again, I gravitate towards these shades in like the summertime, but it was just interesting to do this like little lineup and just see the collage at the end. So yeah, let me know what you think of my favorites and how you feel about yellow polishes and what are some of your favorites too. But leave me any and all thoughts that you have down below so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.